Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this, our second Here to Help business mentoring webinar. The first one was back in March this year, as we neared the end of our 6-month pilot scheme, where we had 7 mentor and mentee pairings, from which we received some amazing feedback, and success stories, which spurred us on to progress on to our first full cohort in May, where we did 23 pairings of mentees with volunteer mentors. So this mentoring scheme was set up by Worcestershire County Council in the summer of 2020 as one of the several support measures that the council set up as part of its COVID-19 response, and working very closely with our project partners, including the Worcestershire Ambassadors, who continue to be one of the primary sources of volunteer mentors to the programme, and also the University of Worcester, who provide the mentoring training to our volunteer mentors. So as part of our preparation for the next cohort, which is due to start later this year, we thought how fabulous it would be to hear about perhaps one of the ultimate mentoring journeys. So from the BBC's The Apprentice, we'd like to welcome the 2014 winner, Mark Wright, to talk to us today about his experiences on the programme and what it's really like, those little snippets of behind the scenes information about being mentored by Lord Sugar himself. So in just a moment, I'll open the floor to Mark. But just before we do, just the usual sort of housekeeping matters. So firstly, this webinar is being recorded. And so it will be available on our website to watch on demand afterwards. And if you don't wish to have your cameras on, then that's absolutely fine. However, at the end, there will be an opportunity to put questions to Mark. I'm happy to do that on your behalf if you want to add your questions to the chat facility. But equally, it'd be lovely for those with questions. You'll have the opportunity to put your questions directly to him. So obviously cameras and microphones switched on for that. All microphones are going to be switched off during Mark's talk, just for best quality sound. And as I say, we'll do all the Q&As at the very end. So finally, at the end of the webinar, we'll provide some further information for those of you who'd like to know more about how to become a mentor, a volunteer mentor, or a mentee on the programme. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Mark, the winner of the 2014 The Apprentice. Mark's been a big supporter of several of the County Council's business support projects. And we're most grateful for Mark coming along this morning to come along to talk specifically about the mentoring. So good morning, Mark. How are you doing?
Good, Jackie. Thank you so much for having me into Worcestershire Council as well. I appreciate another invite to come and speak to your great community of business owners and mentors.
Thanks very much. No, it's good to see you again.
Thank you. All right, shall I take it away and let you know what I think about mentoring and what it's done for me?
Please do. Yeah, take the floor.
Guys, thank you so much for being here with me this morning. As Jackie said, my name is Mark Wright, and I know some of you may have come hoping to see the guy from The Only Ways Essex. That's not me. I'm the Mark Wright that's Lord Sugar's business partner and the winner of The Apprentice. They call me the business Mark Wright, and I like to think a much more handsome and better version, if I don't say so myself. So this morning I'm going to spend about 35 or 40 minutes telling you about my mentoring journey, both being mentored for the last 7 years by Lord Alan Sugar. I've also had the privilege of being mentored by Grant Cardone, one of the top salesmen and listed by Forbes as the best marketer in the world. And then I'm going to tell you, off the back of the success of winning The Apprentice, being mentored by Lord Sugar and making a load of money through my businesses, it has enabled me the ability to go and mentor other people. And I'm going to give you some hints and tips that I've learned, because I believe truly deep down in my heart of hearts that we owe it as business people that when we find success ourselves, you owe it as a duty to pass that success along. And I'm going to give you the recipe that I've been given for success, not only in business, but as a mentor-mentee. So here we go. I'm going to take you through what I think is my my best subject, myself. Just a little bit of background. I have a policy that I only listen to people that are more successful than me on any given subject. If I want to learn to be a great meditator, I find the best monk in the world. If I want to improve my relationship, I find the best relationship coach. If I want to learn about business, I learn it from the best people in business. So before I tell you anything, I want you to know that I'm qualified to speak on the subject. So a little bit about me. As you'll tell by my very handsome accent here, I'm not from the United Kingdom. I'm from a place they call Australia, where the English once sent all their convicts. And look what came back just a few years later. I came over here as a backpacker in 2012. I was taking Australians on tours around Europe. I took a world ticket from Australia, and I got to Berlin in Germany after 2 years, and I'd ran out of money. So I needed to come to the closest town which spoke English, which was London at the time. I landed in a hostel called the White Ferry House in London, and I had £172. But before I got here to the UK, my journey started in Australia as a young man living in the outback in a town called Armidale, where my mum runs a local hairdressing salon and my dad runs a local car garage mechanic. So I think my destiny was written around the dinner table at night, where I think some kids hear about universities, degrees and masters and all of this stuff. At our dinner table, the conversation was how you find good employees, how you increase sales, how much to pay people as a salary, because my parents were constantly having small business owner issues. There was so much stress around the dinner table. I can't begin to convey how stressed my parents were constantly. But what I've come to learn is that's the stress of an SME business owner. So my goal as a young boy was not to be an astronaut, was not to be a fighter, all of that stuff. My goal was to grow up and be a successful businessman so I could take the stress away from my dad and running his business. Pretty strange goal for a young man to have. But the problem is I was dyslexic. I still am dyslexic. I can't read and write at all. I thought I was stupid. I just thought I was a kid that was dumb. It turns out I was dyslexic, but back in my day, they didn't call that dyslexia. They called that being stupid. I just didn't know one had diagnosed it correctly. So I finished school with no grades. Here's this young kid with no grades, can't read and write, and all he wants to do is help his dad not be stressed anymore by being successful in business. I didn't have much prospects. I tried many jobs. I tried being a waiter, but I'd write down the orders. And by the time I'd get back to the till, I couldn't read my own handwriting for what the people had ordered. So I put the orders in the till wrong. I lost my job as a waiter, lost my job as a bartender, lost my job as a car washer. I had that realization that I think a lot of people do, is you think when you grow up and be an adult that life's going to be perfect. It's going to be this amazing, easy journey. You're going to become David Beckham or something. And you finish school and realize this is pretty tough out here. It is pretty unforgiving. Life throws everyone challenges, whether it's dyslexia, whether it's family issues, whether it's career issues. Everyone's dealing with problems. And it's your ability to handle that creates your success. So I finally found a job in sales, and it changed my life. When I came here to the UK, I was living in a backpacking hostel with £172, and I knew that my job had to be in sales, because when you find that right career, that right job, it's like finding the right relationship. You just know once you find the thing that's right for you. That's the town I'm from. That's my beautiful family. And that's my very ugly business partner with me now. So I was in a hostel. I door knocked for 5 days until I found a job as a cold calling salesperson selling Google ads when I got here to the UK. I was working at a digital marketing agency selling AdWords, and they had 500 employees and 73 offices. And I had that entrepreneurial lightning bolt hit me that I think happens to a lot of entrepreneurs, where you're working for someone and you feel you can do it better. I remember sitting in meetings, speaking to customers, speaking to other employees, and I had the sense I can do this better than this company's doing it. And that's the first spark I think that every business owner, any entrepreneur has. So I put together a business plan for what I thought would be the best digital marketing agency in the UK, and I took it to 4 banks. But because I'm not from the UK, they wouldn't even give me a bank account, let alone give me the £25,000 loan I required to start my business. So I was looking for sources of funding to start my company. No one would give me a pound. So a friend said to me, why don't you try out for The Apprentice? And I said, what's The Apprentice? He said, it's a TV show where an old man yells at you. I said, great, I've never heard of it. So I went to the tryouts with my friend Blake to The Apprentice on a Saturday morning where 75,000 people tried out for my series of The Apprentice. I don't know if anyone here has tried out for The Apprentice, but you go into a big 11-story building, there were 75,000 of us, and they eliminate 50% of people at each level of the building. You're put through, they have a series of psychologists that have designed the tryouts, and basically it's very, very clever. What they've established in the tryouts of The Apprentice is you can put 75,000 people in the top of this funnel, and it will give you 15 people out the bottom that can handle the pressure of the show. And all of these little tasks they gave us in the tryouts, they would eliminate people who basically failed, who collapsed under the pressure. And what they've determined is there's only a certain amount of people who can handle this type of pressure. But it turns out people who can handle that type of pressure make really good business people, okay? And one of the tasks I'll never forget as long as I live is they had 12 of us in teams of 12, 2 teams, set up a desk from IKEA. And we had 20 minutes to set up this desk from IKEA. The desk, turns out it takes 3 hours to build this thing. They gave us 20 minutes. It's an impossible task, okay? My brother is just now, he's in the SAS in Australia, the equivalent of the SAS. He was telling me, we were speaking on the phone a couple of weeks ago, they do similar things to them in their training. And the theory behind it is when you give a human being an impossible task, we react in very specific, very certain ways. And only so many people can be given a task that's impossible. And the test is to see who can still move forward during the task, even though that it's impossible. And there's only a certain amount of people. And I was one of the people that when the 20 minutes elapsed, we'd nowhere done the thing. People started swearing, people started crying because there was so much pressure on us. And I just continued to build the task and do the best I could and get the maximum result given the circumstances. I went on to Series 10 of The Apprentice. What I've since learned is your ability to keep moving forward no matter what the circumstances depends how far you go in business. And I believe so far in life, what we can leave in others, it's like your children. It's not what you leave for your children. It's not what you leave for your mentees. It's what you leave in them. And the ability to keep moving forward, no matter, completion isn't success, okay? Completing a task doesn't make it successful. It's the approach that you take in any given task. And the best thing I've ever learned is how you do anything is how you do everything. My dad used to make me wash the dishes, and he said, if you couldn't wash the dishes correctly, how can you run a multi-million-pound company correctly? You start with doing small tasks and doing it till the end and doing it properly. You can do anything with that. And that was really powerful, I think, for me, and what I try to leave in anyone I mentor on my business journey. So I went into Series 10 of The Apprentice. As one of 20 in Series 10, 2014. I won Series 10 of The Apprentice. I became Lord Sugar's business partner in 2015, January 2015. And since I've run a business called Climb Online with him, I'm going to give you some background to my business. Climb Online is the most successful business to be founded by an apprentice winner. We were the first to turn over £1 million in year 1. We turned over 1.7 million. First and only apprentice winner to make a profit in year 1. We disrupted the digital marketing agency, and we've just been listed as in the Digital Success Awards as the fastest growing large agency. So we're now one of the biggest agencies in the United Kingdom. We sold the most Google ads and most Facebook ads of any agency in the United Kingdom last year in 2020 during a pandemic. we've won many awards, including Best Culture, Best Company Culture, Best Staff Culture in the United Kingdom. Entrepreneur of the Year, I won that, and I've been listed on Forbes in their 30 under 30. So that just gives you an idea of why I think I'm qualified to help people, particularly in marketing and particularly in business mentoring. The best thing about my job is not the marketing that I do. Some of the companies I market for are Emirates, TikTok, Groupon, big companies that you will have heard of. Some of the companies you won't have heard of, local barbershops, local dentists that have one employee. Some of my companies have hundreds of thousands of employees. But the best thing about my job is it's enabled me over the past 10 years to go in and meet 4 or 5 different business owners every single day. So over the course of the last 10 years, I've met hundreds of thousands of business owners. And let me tell you, success is a recipe like baking a cake. It leaves clues. If you follow the recipe for success, just like baking a cake, you get the dish, okay? And because I've met so many business owners of so many great businesses and so many bad businesses, I've been able to pick up blueprints. Success leaves clues. So every time I met a successful business owner, I noticed they were doing very similar things. And when I met a really poor business, a really failing business, a really bad business owner, I noticed they were doing very similar things. So just like when I tried out for The Apprentice, I watched every episode of the previous series and I watched what the winner did each episode of the show to get to the end. I understood that if you became project manager in task 1, you had a 75% chance of being fired. I just applied that to my business career. Go and we'll do what the successful people are doing. You'll get the same results, okay? So I compiled a list of business mistakes and business successes that the top people were doing, and the bad people were doing, and I've just followed that, and guess what? It's working out really well for me. Here's some of the biggest business mistakes that I've seen companies make and business owners make and mentors make since I've been doing this. The first is operating too lean. People that start a business with not enough income, not enough capital in their business, they're running their business like they run their personal finances, and they don't have enough money in the company to make it successful. They might have a good idea or they might have a good product, but they don't have enough money to get that in front of the right customers, to get the right employees, to take on offices or IT equipment. Having the right amount of capital to start a business is just as important as the product or service that you're offering. And this is a big one. We fall into the mistake, and particularly in the UK, of focusing on what your turnover is, because award entries and people will always ask you, what's the turnover of your business? It's completely irrelevant. You should never talk about turnover. They say turnover is vanity, profit is sanity. And it's so true. Turnover could mean nothing. If your costs are 100% of your turnover, you're losing money. It's all about the margin, the gross margin that your business is making, or your product margin that you're selling. And everyone I work with, all of the people I mentor for the Prince's Trust, all of the people that I invest in their businesses, they're so proud in telling me what their turnover is, but I really want to know what their margin and their margin percentage is. And here's my biggest mistake that I made: not employing the right staff when I started my business. I got an investment of £250,000 from Lord Sugar, and all I wanted to do was hold on to that investment and not spend any of it, so I felt richer. But what that led to is me employing really poor performing employees early on, people on 16, 17, 18,000 pound salaries to do jobs that were for 50,000 pound people. And guess what happened? They created issues. They created losses for the company where the right people would have taken the company forward. And that was my mistake, being cheap where I needed to invest. And failure to lead and delegate effectively. This happens to every business owner on their entrepreneurial journey, is they create a bottleneck in their own company and they say things like, I do it better than everyone else. I can't trust someone else to do that. And the business owner starts doing everything in their own company. And a failure to delegate or lead stops the business from growing. It's generally the owner that's stopping, or the managing director that's stopping the business from growing, because they're over-controlling every element of their business. And that failure to delegate actually hampers the business in the long run. Trusting in other people to do a good job is so important in anyone's success, giving people the chance to fail. And they'll often surprise you with how effective they are in what they can do. And no sales division. I've never met a company in my history of being a businessman that doesn't need a sales division. Every company needs sales. When I'm here with you now, I have 8 people on the road selling for my company. And if I didn't have that right now while I'm with you, I'd be losing money. Your business needs to be making money 24/7. It needs to be working 24 hours a day. And that is through systems, marketing, and sales. You'll be able to achieve that. And no marketing budget. The average successful business in the UK spends on average 11% of turnover on their marketing budget. 11%. Companies that don't spend money on marketing fail. They try to be cheap. They try to make that money hit the P&L and wonder why they've got no sales coming in. If you're not spending 10 to 11% of your marketing turnover on marketing, you're not going to get enough sales to keep going for the long term. And here's a big one that I'm very passionate about, and it's the lack of belief and ability to think big. I often work with people who feel guilty for the success they've had. They might have created a product or a business that really works, and they feel that it was an accident, that they're a one-trick pony, that they don't deserve the success that they have. And any gift you can give someone that you work with, that you mentor, is the self-belief, the belief in themselves, the ability to think big and feel that things are for them. The ability to believe in yourself determines how far you will go in your career. And that ability to dream big, if you're going to be thinking, think big, why not? I do a thing called smelling the leather. When I worked in that, the cold calling business, when I first got to the UK, I used to have some terrible days where people would insult me and abuse me on the phone, tell me to go and kill myself, all of that nasty stuff of being a cold calling salesperson. And I used to do this thing where I'd go and sit out front of a Lamborghini dealership of the office and eat my lunch and watch people going in for their appointments to pick up their Lamborghini. And I call it smelling the leather. It was my ability to watch people going in and think, when it's my turn to go in for my Lamborghini appointment. And it really helped me find motivation in hard times. And it's just one of the little tricks I've done over the years to get myself thinking in the right direction. And I've been so lucky again in my career to meet many billionaires. Now, people always say to me, Mark, there's much more to life than money, and there is. But I'm a business coach. And one of the most important things in a business is to make money. So one of the things that we speak about is making money. And when I've met billionaires, I've been so hungry to understand how they got there. What's the blueprint to their success? Every single billionaire I've met has a coach or mentor. Every single one. And they all take pride in telling me stories that they've learned from their coach or mentor. On average, the CEOs of the Fortune 5 companies read on average 1 book a week. When I finished school, I'd never read 1 book because I'm dyslexic. That was news to me because I wanted to be a successful businessman, but I'd never read 1 book. So I started listening to audiobooks. Ever since I've started listening to audiobooks, I've tripled my income every single year. If you want to earn more, you've got to learn more, whether that's about your industry, business, motivation, whatever, your health. Knowledge is the key to success, and audiobooks have really helped me. They say, how do you get to the front of the buffet line of life? Well, you have to get in the line and stay there long enough to get to the front. A lot of people never get success in business because they keep changing their mind. They keep changing their strategy. They keep changing the line. 90% of success in business is actually showing up and staying in your business long enough through the hurdles for it to be successful, and being really diligent with time. I am famously hard to get a meeting with on purpose. There's so many meetings now because of things like Microsoft Teams, because of things like Zoom, because of mobile technology. Everyone is over available. So people spend their days having meetings for the sake of meetings. Jeff Bezos has a 2 pizza rule. Anyone you can't feed with 2 pizzas, that's too many people for a meeting, okay? Keeping meetings under 45 minutes, making sure if possible people are standing, and making sure that anyone isn't in that room who can't contribute to that project. But being diligent with your time is so important to success in business. I plan my diary on a Sunday going forward to the next Saturday in 1 hour blocks. I plan everything in there, lunch, working out, whatever it's going to be, but being really diligent with my time creates space, 1, for rest, 2, for exercise, 3, for my friends and family without me feeling that sense of guilt. But also just make sure that I'm not sitting in a meeting or doing things where I'm feeling busy and successful, but it's actually not contributing to my goals at all. And birds of a feather flock together. If you hang around with losers, you'll become a loser, okay? If you hang around with billionaires, if you get mentored by people like Lord Sugar, you'll become a successful businessman. You are a representation of the 5 people you hang around with. If you hang around with people that think that having a successful business is silly, don't understand how to hire a sales team, aren't encouraging you to go and achieve your goals, you'll never achieve them. You will only achieve your greatest goal. And that's why I always say set your goals big, because if you want to make £1 million, you'll make $1 million, but you won't make 1.5 million. If you want to make 1 million, your goal should be to make 10 million. You might make 9. That's still successful. If you aim for the moon, you might hit a star. But I hang around with people that think big. They push me, they encourage me. And getting around the right people is like having a group of mentors or coaches around you 24/7. And I really encourage that. Being laser focused. I have my goals, I write my goals down, I look at them regularly, and I focus on where I'm going constantly. And just comfortable being uncomfortable. The best advice I got from one of Lord Sugar's advisors in the first week of working for him, he said, you know, to be successful in business, Mark, you've got to have a rhinoceros skin. He said, a lot of things that happen in business are really uncomfortable. You'll be getting attacked. People will say bad things. People write bad reviews. People will come after you. And it's your ability to be tough, to be comfortable being uncomfortable for a long period of time that will determine your success in business. Some of the best things that I've learned from Lord Sugar, and I've been mentored with him for now 7 years, and now I've passed a lot of this on to the people I mentor and the businesses that I own. The biggest thing for me is accountability. If you ever look at a business, a company's house that doesn't have a board of directors, have board meetings, have a mentor, they suck. This is why 95% of businesses fail in 5 years, is because no one's holding the main shareholders or the directors to account. When I have my board meetings, a lot of it is me checking back in to show that I've done the things that I said I would do in our last session. I spend 1 day a month with Lord Sugar, always have, always will do while we're in business. And the main thing for me is accountability. It's really making sure I'm doing the things I've said I would do, and I'm doing the things that even make me uncomfortable, whether it's getting rid of the wrong employee, changing those suppliers to the ones with the better costs. Because if people left to their own devices just remain in comfort, that's why people have personal trainers. They do those 5K running clubs. It's about going out there. And a mentor is someone who doesn't tell you what you want to hear. They tell you what you need to hear. The worst mentor you can have in business is a friend or family member, because they'll tell you you're doing great. Well done. It's a fantastic business. But that's not what a good mentor is. A great mentor just tells you constantly what you need to hear. They don't give you what's called tacit approval. When you hear nonsense, when you hear something that doesn't sound right, you stop them and you say, that doesn't sound right. That's not the right thing for the business. You give feedback even when it's hard for the mentee to hear. The biggest thing is value through experience. You know, I've had so many situations crop up in my business where I think the world is ending for me that day. And I ring Lord Sugar, he says, don't worry about it. That's happened to me 10 times. You email this person, you ring that person, and it'll be solved. And you feel like the weight of the world's lifting off your shoulder, because nothing in business beats experience. And that's what a mentor gives a mentee, is that experience. And just to hear, just for me to hear, or just for your mentees to hear the words, don't worry about it. This is what we're going to do. It's happened to me 100 times. Do you know how good that feels as a young person in business? It's like taking a warm bath in bliss. So make sure you pass that down the chain. And just solving business challenges, connecting you with the right people. You know, the biggest thing in life you can give a business person is a good lawyer and a good accountant, and a good mentor. Influencing strategy and growth, using your referral network, connecting people to the right people. You know, your network, you know, we all know our network is our net worth. Make sure you go through who is in your network that could be a good meeting, good connection, good opportunity for anyone that you mentee or mentor, sorry. And motivation. I think my biggest source that I offer the people that I mentor is the motivation I give them. One, I show them that it's possible via what I've achieved. I came here with 100 quid and I'm now a multi-millionaire. If I can come here from another country, I'm dyslexic and was living in a backpacking hostel, and 5 years later, I have over 150,000 followers on social media. I have hundreds of employees, 5 businesses, and have made a lot of money. What can you do? You can do whatever you want. It's your ability to believe you can, write those things down and go out and do it that's stopping you. So let's go and do it. And what I constantly drilling into the people I coach and mentor is that self-belief, and just showing them, constantly motivating them and inspiring them to want it for themselves, and showing them that it's possible. So hopefully there's some good stuff in there for you guys, but I always feel that the best thing out of these sessions is where they're smaller sessions like we have today. My business coaching course, we work with a minimum of 500 people, and I can't get to know 500 people. There's 8-10 of us on this call. So if you've got any questions, if you've got any specific stuff, I'd love to answer it in detail directly too. So if you've got a question, please ask me yourself. Make them hard. It can be about the apprentice, business, mentoring, mentee, whatever it is. I'm here at your disposal for the next sort of 10-15 minutes for anything you want to ask me.
Thanks for that, Mark. No, it's really good. One question that was actually been put ahead of today from somebody who wasn't able to attend, but they have heard you speak before. So the question was along the lines of, not word for word, but along the lines of, when you're saying about the self-belief, think big, it sort of knits neatly into that. You strike, you come across as probably one of the most confident people most of us will have ever met. Have you ever had, and it genuinely would want to admit to a scenario where you've had that imposter syndrome of, because I think from a lot of the feedback we had from the very first pilot scheme cohort, probably bar none, all the mentees reported that was probably the one thing, the confidence that the mentoring experience gave them, for them to challenge that imposter, to sort of take that next step and be brave. Yourself, have you ever come across that, and it has made you hesitate as far as in the decisions you've needed to make and the progress that you've made in business?
Constantly. It's a very good question. I think I've had many moments in my life or career where I've failed, or I've felt I've had success and haven't felt that I've deserved that success. And what I've learned is that's pretty much everyone. If you've got a conscience, if you've got a soul, deep down, most people are very good people. And we want things to be equal. We want things to be, unless you're a psychopath that just wants everything for yourself, you will feel a bit of guilt when you get a lot of money, when you get some success, whatever it might be, followers on social media, fame, money. And I've had moments where I've really doubted myself. And what I've learned, and again, just shadowing Alan Sugar, he's an introvert. He's not the most confident guy. He gets uncomfortable speaking to people. He gets uncomfortable with the things that he's achieved. But when I learned that he does, and I do, but we want to go and create these things for ourselves. We want to give back to others. We want to speak. We want to do these things. It's just, I think the biggest thing for me has been, one, having goals, understanding what I want to achieve. And when I achieve them, understanding that it's okay to have that success. One of my good friends and mentors as well, Grant Cardone, he bought a brand new jet, and he invited me to go onto his jet. I was the first person he invited onto his jet. And as we were walking, it was we're in Wales, in Cardiff, speaking. And he said, we're going to fly up to Scotland to speak there. And before we got onto his jet, I was standing at the bottom of the stairs. He said, I had to promise him one thing. He said, you will become a very successful businessman. I have no doubt at all. And he said, the only promise you have to make me is I can tell you're going to be successful, and I can tell one day you'll have a jet of your own. But the only promise is you've got to let a young entrepreneur come onto your jet to share in the success and understand that it's possible for themselves as well. Because someone had done that to him and he did it to me. And it was so amazing to get that sort of gratification and that sort of permission from another successful entrepreneur. And it was so important for him to pass it down for me, and for me to promise that I pass it down as well, because I think a lot of us are going through the same challenges, and just having someone to share those challenges with, two, someone to give you permission to be successful, but also three, making sure that we've got people to mentor the next generation. And, you know, I've often asked Alan Sugar why he mentors me, and the money we make together is so insignificant to him in his overall wealth. It's just a tax burden. You know, I can't understand why he works with me, because the money is insignificant. It's more trouble than it's worth, but he gets so much pleasure out of watching my journey develop. And I think I'm starting to realize that with the people that I'm working with is you just watch the same journey, and it's amazing. The people that I'm working with going through the same challenges I was having 5 years ago, and I almost just smile and refer them to the right person, or, you know, sometimes I let them fall into the hole they've dug themselves as little lessons, and it's really interesting. But I think having that permission to be successful is an important gift you can give everyone you work with.
Yeah. So it's good to know that you've got that support structure to deal with the imposter and the confidence issues when those situations strike. Yeah,
definitely. And I'm not a confident guy, by the way. This is a don't want to say a facade, but I didn't like public speaking. I hated public speaking. I was very scared of public speaking. The first talk I did, 4 people came. My last conference, I had 1,500 people come. But I understood that your ability to sell, your ability to speak confidently is so important. Starbucks does not make the best coffee, okay? McDonald's does not make the best hamburger, but they're the most well-known. And our ability to become known, that's why Richard Branson is flying bloody balloons around and shooting up to space. We all know who Richard Branson is and what Virgin does. We all know who Elon Musk is and what Tesla does. We all know what Steve Jobs, this man behind me, does and what Apple does. And I understood if I really wanted to make it, I needed to get good at public speaking, and I needed to know, people needed to know who I am and what I do. And that's where I get my confidence from, because to hit my goals, I need to be confident.
Cool. Brilliant. Great. Thanks, Mark. Brigitte, we'll go to you next if you'd like to put your question to Mark.
Hello, hi Mark. Thanks very much for your presentation. Very inspiring and motivating, and I'm glad to be part of it on such a short notice. So thanks, Stacey. A quick one on your take goes also a little bit towards confidence plus pricing strategy for someone that's entering a new market. What's your take on how did you do that? Do you go straight to the price that you see yourself and you value yourself, and this is what it is, and I'm always there, and it just takes a bit longer until people really realize and pay for it? Or did you use a smooth strategy, say, oh, give out a bid, put it more into the category of marketing, give out freebies, and then it will come in or meet halfway? So I always have mixed messages on other mentors or other businesses, and I'd be curious to hear what you think about pricing early on.
Very good question. And it's a very hard question, because there is a lot of theories to say that you should set your price at what you believe you're worth. And knowing your worth is very important. I have always been a big believer in getting what I call runs on the board. People need to know what you do, and you need to have some case study and testimonial work to attract more business. So I'll give you an example. If you want to use my agency today, the minimum cost is between £3,000 and £5,000 for our smallest customer. When I started, my first customer paid me £150 a month. But that 150 allowed me to get a 400 to a 500 to a 800 to get up to where I am today. I've always believed that people need to know who you are and what you do. And the best way to show them is through the quality of your work. So early on in my journey, I made the conscious decision to give work away, to do it at cost price, as you said, as almost marketing, as a magnet, because there's, I think, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of people sitting around saying they're really quiet, but when's the last time they offered to do some work to show them what they can do? And the best way of selling your services is showing people what you can do and the quality of what you can provide. That's why personal trainers give away free sessions, because once you have one session and realize that really worked, I've never pushed myself that hard, all of a sudden you then start buying sessions in packs of 10s and 12. So I think, to answer your question directly, it comes down to the personality of the owner of the business. I've always been a hard worker, and someone who's really focused on what I can do and being busy and creating work and success for myself. So that's why I did it that way.
Great. Thank you very much, Mark.
No worries.
Thanks, Mark. Another question is, so what have you taken from being a mentor to others that you've then actually been able to use in your own business?
Everything, absolutely everything. I mean, the biggest thing, well, I think I'll start with shadowing Lord Sugar. I think the best thing you learn from a mentor is just by watching the way that they conduct themselves. And that's the thing I never take for granted. I realize that I'm always on show in front of my employees and the people that I mentor. Is the way I conduct myself is how they will use that as a guidepost for their journey. The way I speak, the way I dress, the hours that I work, I see myself constantly as on show. And the biggest thing I've taken from Lord Sugar, above every lesson and thing that we've done together, is his work ethic. You know, he's on emails early, he responds quickly, he works really hard and very consistently. And that has not been something that he's taught me. It's just rubbed off from watching him. So that's never lost on me. I try to constantly be an example for people, whether that's how I dress and all of that stuff, how quickly I respond. But the biggest gift I give anyone I deal with is honesty. Okay, it's that ruthless honesty. And I've made people cry, I've made people hate me, I've made people leave my tutelage. But as I've always said to my managers, is my hope is anyone who leaves me reflects in 5 to 10 years' time and respects what I've told them. If I've made them a better business person, if I've made them more successful, they don't like me. My goal is not for people to like me. It's my goal to make people better. And being liked and making someone great is seldom the same thing. If you spoke to a lot of my previous employees and mentees, they will not tell you that I'm a nice bloke. They will not tell you that they enjoyed going for a beer with me. What they might tell you is that they're a great business person because of their experience with me. And that for me is satisfaction.
Great, cool. And go on, tell us, is Lord Sugar the same person behind the scenes as he is on camera?
He's much harder in real life. And like winning The Apprentice was easy compared to running a business with Alan for the last 7 years. Out of 15 winners of the show, I'm only one of 4 left with him. And I think that gives you an idea of, I kind of see myself as a sort of business Navy SEAL, as one of the people who's doing the toughest version of business that you can do. And I'm just lasting as long as I can. And he's so tough. His brand of business is not for everyone. His directness is not for everyone. His language, his conduct is not for everyone. But it works for me. And I found what works for me and I'm sticking to it. And it's made me a lot of success off the back of it.
And so how often do you actually meet with him? Is it a regular catch up or more of an ad hoc, but being the busy guy it is? I imagine he is. I imagine it's sort of planning in. You have a shortcut way in.
One day a month, 1 day a
Okay.
month. And we
Right.
speak on WhatsApp almost weekly, too much. Yeah, we spend 1 day a month together. I spend 1 day with the people that I mentor, and a lot of it's just through time. I think once a week is ideal, or once a fortnight is ideal, but certainly minimum once a month, because other than that, the touch points are too far apart to use as guideposts.
Oh, great, thank you. Another question that's come in is that you advise not to use a family member or friend as a mentor, but what if you all have a friend or a family member who is very successful, and you feel you could learn a lot from them? Would you still advise against it, or is it a recipe for disaster?
It's a recipe for absolute disaster. I've never seen it work, and it's really interesting because a lot of great mentors that have gone on to coach some of the most successful business people, they start to coach their son or daughter or a friend, and it just doesn't work. And there's almost something like, whether it's the respect from the mentee and how, like, do you know, the worst thing is between me and my dad. It just doesn't work. And I've become this, I think, very good business person. And I give my dad advice about his business, and he just thinks I'm that young kid he raised, and he doesn't take my advice with any seriousness, and vice versa. And it's because of our family relationship. And I've seen it with Lord Sugar and his kids, and I've seen it with, you know, Richard Branson and his kids, and Grant and his kids. And it's just a really strange thing. And I think there's too much of a dynamic. A great mentor-mentee relationship works where you don't know the person and they don't know you so well, because there's a lot more mutual respect there, and a sense of listening and understanding. But what you can do from a friend or family member is learn from their stories, from their shared experience. I wouldn't have a formal coaching relationship. I would just listen to their experience and take that as the value that it is from watching that.
Great. Okay, cool. Thank you. Have we got any other questions, Don?
There's one that says, have I ever had a mentoring disaster? And what did I learn from it?
Yeah, cool. Great.
Good, very good question. Do you know, you can learn just as much from the bad experiences, the bad mentors, than as the good ones. And it's almost like learning what not to do, if that makes sense. Have I ever had a disaster? Not really. I've had people that I didn't get on with, who I didn't respect the person. And I think that respect is really important to the overall thing. But on the whole, I've been very lucky with the mentors that I've had. I think what the most important thing is, I think the two most important things in business success is, one, having goals, written goals for your personal and business life, and having a mentor. And I'll tell anyone who'll listen, but it's really interesting, is one of my friends and coaches, he's the largest property landlord in the United Kingdom. He was a homeless guy who asked Richard Branson. He found out where Richard Branson lived, and he went to Richard Branson's house, and he asked Richard Branson for mentoring. And Richard Branson said, if you donate £100,000 to my charity and read these 4 books, I'll mentor you. He was homeless. He found a way to raise the money, donated £100,000 to Richard's charity, and Richard mentored him. He now asks of anyone who asks him for mentoring to read 2 books. He has some crazy statistic, like out of the 700 people that have asked him for mentoring, only 4 or 5 have ever read the 2 books and came back. And this is the thing, a lot of people say they want success, that they want help, but then you ask them to do something simple like read 1 or 2 books, and only a couple come back. So this is it, isn't it? We can all know the right thing is having a mentor and setting goals. It's listening and conducting yourself, doing the work is always the biggest step following that.
Cool. Thanks, Mark. Dominique, over to you. Got your hand up?
Hi, yeah, I was just going to pick up on what you just mentioned about Alan Sugar being worse in real life, hard in real life, and people not wanting to come to the pub with you. What you're saying, to be successful in business, you basically can't be liked, you can't be a nice person?
Do you want my honest answer?
Yeah, I think you're going to give it anyway.
Yeah. The truth is, yes. I like to think I'm a nice guy. I am a nice guy. I'm going to say that. Am I a nice guy in business? I'm not. I'm really not. And I don't think you can be. I've been around too long and seen what happens behind the scenes. It's so hardcore and it's so nasty at times that if you cannot conduct yourself in the right way, you'll get eaten alive. You will get eaten alive. And I've really had to work on that. I've had my heart broken a million times. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I think I'm overly generous and overly nice. In business, they are not good attributes. So I've had to almost have two different marks: at home on Saturday and Sunday, Mark, and in business, Mark. And I've learned that through Lord Sugar, because otherwise, in his words, I'd get mullered. Okay. So don't know what that means, but I knew that meant I had to be a different version of myself between 9 and 5. And in today's world, you can't say that, because you're meant to say the correct answer is, oh, you can be lovely 9 to 5 and also be Elon Musk. I honestly don't think you can.
Okay. But does that depend on where you want your business to be? If you want to just have a nice local business, that ticks over, as opposed to where obviously, you want to set your standards way up there, is that the difference?
Good question. I think that is the difference. It depends on the level of the goal. And I'm going for world domination. So I guess my demeanor has to be well dominating, doesn't it? But a part of being a great local business is that friendliness and is that lighter touch. But listen, if you get into a local planning dispute or something with your neighbor, it also helps to be a tough person in the face of adversity. And I think it's a lot of just about never being surprised at what people will go to take you down. And when you become successful, and I've tasted this myself, you get fake reviews from competitors. You get people suing you. You get staff doing naughty things. And I think what Lord Sugar has left in me is the ability to never be surprised at what can go wrong, and never being surprised by it, just saying, okay, this has happened today. And that is a really thing, but we expect that, and being able to tackle it. And it's not so much being a bad person, it's just having that ability to constantly be tough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Great, thanks, Mark. There's another one via the chat to say, how does a single mum with no funding even get a foot on the ladder?
How does it? Well, listen, I was a single man in a backpacking hostel with no funding, and I got my foot on the ladder. So it's possible for you as well. I think now in today's world, there's more avenues than ever before. There's great crowdfunding options. There's bank debt, which is really easy to get. There's local council funding, which are readily available, which particularly after Corona, there's great funding sources available, even if it's, bounce back loans, all these types of things. There's so many different avenues which have become available. I think you need to start with a good business plan if it's looking for a business, or a good partnership with someone that is looking to do something similar. But honestly, I've never known a better time to get financing and to get your foot on the ladder. It's just having a good business plan and knowing what you want to achieve in those first 2 years.
Yeah, and I definitely support that from the council's point of view. With the business support, this is a free mentoring program after all. So, there's plenty of support, of business support and grants and all sorts of funding support available. So yeah, I'd absolutely support what you said there. Brigitte, another question from you, please.
Thank you. Yeah, just adding on to what you've been talking about, being tough or being mean or brutal or something, whether I somehow can't shake off the feeling of thinking, can you really change 150 degrees, 180 degrees, sorry, to be rough, or is it more like being authentic and honest? I mean, I'm originally from Germany, And some I've experienced it myself and also on others, that in our language, we're just quite straightforward and very honest and direct, which in the English, British culture, maybe Australian as well, comes across as rude and brutal. Yet though, we just tend to be a bit more fact-based and having the idea of, I put this across to you, this is how I see it, and you can do with it whatever you want. So I just wanted to ask you whether you distinguish also between being brutal and saying, right, if an employee comes and says, right, I need a sick day because my child is at home and I need to look after him or her, and you can say, okay, no, this is bad, you need to leave because I need you to work. Or you come to an agreement and say, okay, if you can we really need this project to be finished, is there a way, can I help you to do that? But we, trying to explain the facts and your circumstances and trying to push your point across, saying, I need you, this is what you need to do, but I appreciate on the other side that you have maybe family issues or whatever it might be.
You guys are really latching on to this tough in business theme today, huh? And I think you nailed it in the first part of your question when you said it's not so much, it's not being about a tough bugger where you're unreasonable just for the sake of being a tough bugger. It is that authenticity and the honesty. That's what I'm trying to get across is I think most people don't actually say what they mean or what they think because they're scared of hurting someone's feelings. But actually what you do is end up setting that person back a long way in their journey, because by not telling them you need to rethink your pricing, you need to rethink your strategy here because it's wrong. Yes, that might hurt them for 10 or 15 minutes, but long term, you're actually going to create success for that individual. And that's our job as mentors and good managers, is sometimes to deliver that rough information. I think what I touched on, not giving tacit approval. If you hear something that you don't agree with or that is wrong, tell the person you don't agree with it and why it is wrong. It's very important. Also, I've had great mentors, and this is where a great mentor, I remember I had this mentor and he sent me a task to put 100 leads in the Salesforce system by 11 p.m. at night. I rang him at 8 p.m. and I said, there's no way I'm going to get 100 in. I've got like 8 in and it's 8 o'clock. I'm never going to have 100 in by 11. And he just said, you'll have 100 in by 11. Don't call me back till you do. I was furious. I didn't think I could do it. I didn't want to do it. That was the reason why I was saying I didn't think I could, because I didn't want to. Guess what? By 11 o'clock, I had 100 in there. Those 100 in there helped me get my first 2 sales. Those first 2 sales created a lot of my success after that. He made me do something that I didn't think I could do, that I really didn't want to do. And he forced me to do it when I wanted to be watching a movie with my girlfriend at 10 o'clock at night. But that forcing me didn't make me like him, but it made me successful for my first 2 sales. And when someone says to you, my kid's sick, I haven't got a babysitter, there's always a way. Your kid's sitting with you while you do that meeting. A lot of people are reasonable. If I had to have a child here because I couldn't find help while I delivered this talk, I made a commitment to Jackie to be here for this talk. You've got a child behind you right now. Perfect timing. Almost like you're on this call. You've got a reason not to be on this call. You've got a young child right there. You've got an excuse. Everyone's got an excuse. Everyone's got a cold. Everyone's mum has dementia. Someone's got cancer. Someone's got children. We all have an excuse, but it's what do you do after that excuse? And it's just showing the person you're working with an alternative to the excuse.
Oh, bless him. That was right on cue. That was
literally, I wish, that was like almost.
Get him on the payroll.
It wasn't agreed, was it, Mark?
No.
Oh, superb. What a lovely way to, as we're drawing to an end. So if there is any more questions, another one. If you had to pick just one, what is the key benefit of having a mentor?
Do you know the saying, a problem shared is a problem halved? That sums mentoring up for me in one sentence. I've had issues in my business where I felt like my business and my life is ending. And just by picking up the phone to my mentor, I've now felt like I've got a second lifeline and I can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And that is the key benefit. And, that's particularly why it's important for young people to have a mentor, because when things happen for the first time in your journey, it feels like it's going to crush you. But the really realistic thing is it's actually a small thing in the scheme of things. And it's about showing that big picture, sharing the problem and planning a way out of it.
Superb. Great messages. Thanks so much, Mark. If there's, I'm just going to do some sort of finishing messages with regards to perfect timing. Thank you, Azuma, for the next steps for the mentoring program. But Mark, thank you so much. As always, loads of gems of wisdom there. And I think, I think mentors and mentees can have gone away with some really useful information there of the value of mentoring. So thank you ever so much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you all for attending and your great questions and your attention. I appreciate the invite, Jackie, and to Worcestershire County Council. Have a great rest of the day.
Fab, thank you very much. So just to all our delegates then, just to re-emphasize that the website, there's more information about the mentoring program. That I have put the link there and I can send it out to all the people that have attended. But to make life easy for yourself, you can just put it into Google as Worcestershire County Council mentoring, and that will bring up the page that you need. Contact us to obtain your mentor or mentee application form. And applications are invited right through to December, after which the later this year, so the matching process will then take place for next cohort to start probably early in 2022. So it only really leaves me to say that I've been caretaking the project for the last sort of 10 months or so, whilst the previous project manager was on maternity leave. So I'm going to be handing the reins back to Lorna and also my colleague Dominique Bray, who's also on the call today. Lorna put the program together initially. I've just been very much nurturing it from that point. So I wish the project every success in the future. I'll certainly be maintaining my support for the project as well, and wish it every success for the future. So again, many thanks for Mark for his pearls of wisdom today. And if anyone has any further questions at all about the mentoring project, just contact us through the website, and we'll be delighted to be able to get you started on your mentoring journey. So thank you all for joining us today, and have a busy day, and grab yourself a mentor is, I think, definitely the message. Thanks again. Thank you. Bye-bye.